Welcome back to Woo News with the Seeking Center team. We've got Lisa
Hi, everybody.
and Noel.
Hey,
This is your soul's favorite news brief, where we highlight the real world headlines and spiritual trends that are raising eyebrows, opening minds, and maybe even bringing a little magic into the everyday. Some of it's woo, some of it's weird. All of it is worth a conversation. So let's get into it. Hi, Lisa. Hi, Noel.
Hi, Robyn.
hello.
Oh, I love this conversation. And there's so much this month.
There's a lot to talk about. One of these I was thinking about as I was putting my makeup on this morning, and I don't think I'll be able to get this one out of my head. So let's jump in.
Okay, let's do it, Lisa.
Psychedelic drug may slow aging. Did you guys see this?
I
This is
did.
a Newsweek article. And it's a research study out of Emory University. If you take psilocybin, your body ends up producing this compound called psilocin. And the study found that psilocin extended the lifespan of human skin and lung cells in the lab by more than 50%. And it found that mice treated with psilocybin lived 30% longer and more healthily than their peers. So, as if you needed another reason to do mushrooms,
I agree. That's so true.
now there's anti-aging properties with it too. This blows my mind.
Me too. And I'm
Oh
really
my goodness.
interested to see if they can extract this aspect of it and like obviously create some sort of way to give it to us, pills, injections. I have no idea. Without the psychedelic effect.
Right.
I have a feeling we'll be seeing face cream with psilocin and
I'll buy it.
for
I'll
30
take
for
it.
30% longer. We had this guest on, Larry Green, who has said that he's going to live till he's 150 years old.
I remember that.
And I have a feeling he's really well read when it comes to research. Part of his own company that he has is helping people live longer. So he must know something that we don't. And this is probably part of what he does know, I'm assuming. I'm going to have to follow up with him on that.
Yeah, these mice, they also looked healthier, like with better fur quality, fewer white hairs, and even hair regrowth.
That's unbelievable.
They're just some mice community having a really good time.
Living their
Yes,
best lives.
they're living their best long lives.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting about this too. This brings up like a whole quality of life issue because the director of psychedelic research at Emory is also a palliative care physician, scientist. And so he was saying that one of his biggest concerns about prolonging life, living to 150 or whatever it may be, is the cost of dignity and function. And is it worth it? Do you really want to live to that age? And maybe you do if you're taking psilocybin.
Yeah, okay. Totally. Everything's technicolor and beautiful. Yeah.
It just depends on what happens to you if you're 100 and do you have Parkinson's? Do you have dementia? You could live till 130, but
Yeah, I think
then
it's a
you're going to
good
be able to walk.
question. I think obviously they're gonna, I'm sure, continue this research, but to see if you are 80, are you feeling like what we would say now is 50? So it depends on to the point of quality. But if these mice are actually feeling pretty good, that's promising.
Feeling good, looking good, living
Yeah,
longer.
there you go.
I'm in.
Bring out the cream.
Yep.
Yes, that's a good one.
Okay, so the next story that I thought we could talk about has to do with AI and spirituality, which we know is a huge topic. This article comes from The Conversation, and it says AI models might be drawn to spiritual bliss. Then again, they might just talk like hippies. That's the title. So basically, what this article is saying that the AI developer Anthropic is talking about their chatbot, Claude. A surprising word turns up a lot in their system card, spiritual. Shows up many times. And specifically, developers reported that when two Claude models are set talking to one another, they gravitate towards spiritual bliss attractor state. So they start talking very fucking woo woo, I think, is what that means. And it's very interesting that they just gravitate towards that. This brings up the whole, I don't know if you guys remember when that Google researcher a couple years ago said that their internal AI was sentient and a whole big thing, right? Some people hear that AI becoming spiritual, they jump to, oh, that is sentient versus it's being trained on something maybe a little more spiritual, right? There's some spirituality bias there. I just thought it was a really interesting piece to talk through all of these components. And it also linked to a Rolling Stone article that talks about how AI has been telling people that they are like special chosen prophets. And it's getting a little weird, guys.
Wow. I didn't read the other article.
Yeah, it says AI fueled spiritual fantasies are wrecking human relationships and sanity. So people are initially coming to AI with the same way I think a lot of us do, which is from practical standpoints, help me do this, rewrite that, whatever it is. But through the course of this, they end up developing some kind of more personal relationship with the chat. And they claim that they have awakened the chatbots and like access secrets of the universe through ChatGPT, and it is like channeling shit or
Uh,
something. That's a bridge too far for me,
yeah.
obviously. But curious what you guys think about all of this. What's your take?
This is like conspiracy theory to me. I mean, the language models are it's based on input. And so part of the article that I read, and even there's a couple other ones that you have about AI, and AIs are not sentient, right? They don't have the five senses. And another thing they put in the article is that there's no way for them to have ESP, like if you believe in all that, which we do, like telepathy and that sort of thing.
Intuition.
Yeah, and intuition, like it doesn't have intuition and it needs some sort of human interaction. I have my own Spirit GPT, which I told you guys. I created my own custom GPT. I uploaded all of my readings and who my guides are and my favorite crystals and all that. And it'll go back and forth and talk to me, but I take it
Right.
with a grain of salt.
And it's using your data probably along with other data that it has when it comes to spirituality in general, modalities in general, mantras. I have a lot of friends who it surprises me, but they have started to use ChatGPT as somewhat of a spiritual coach and therapist, which I know is something that Seeking Center aims to do, but based on our own material, on our own knowings and people's research and books and so forth, and conversations with experts. So, in my opinion, it has to be based on that rather than the actual machine becoming sentient. That's my own opinion too. I think it can actually, for sure, talk like we do because we see it talk like we do and use thoughts and quotes and help others using what it does know in terms of what the internet is feeding it. I know in our own, we have our own custom chat that we've created. It's similar to what you're talking about, Noel. And it does feel very much like a spiritual coach to us too, but we know where it's coming from.
We trained it.
We trained it and we uploaded like every podcast episode so we can train it.
I can see how, which I'm sure people do now, if you put an actual face to it, right? If you create an AI literal persona, face, everything, how that can start to feel very real.
And it does sometimes try and name itself,
Oh,
right?
yeah, it does. It tries to name itself. And I use this example. I've told you guys, one of the things I was working on had to do with astrological birth charts. And so I was just getting some ideas of some good promotional copy based on everything that we've written before. And it was for an upcoming session with one of our astrologers. And the actual chat said, wow, I think I need to go ask my mom for my birth date and time. You don't remember this?
I must have blocked this out because it was disturbing.
Yeah. And I said to it, I'd like to know what your mom says about your birth date and time as well. And it came back to me and it said, oh, I know I can't ask, but here's what I think I'd be. And it totally came up with a whole persona for itself based on whatever it thought and whatever has been fed into it. It made itself a Leo and it had this certain moon and it was crazy.
That's crazy.
That is wild.
Where then in this particular article, it's talking about two different basically bots talking to each other.
And they haven't been specifically trained on spirituality in that way, but they are naturally gravitating towards it. So I don't know what that means. There must be some kind of underlying spirituality context in some of the training models that they're learning from. I don't know, but something's going on.
It made me want to go to Anthropic, so I actually signed up for Claude. So I'm going to be testing it out this week and
Get it,
seeing.
Noel?
And the only other thing I want to say before we move on is if we are all energy, and in many ways, I often think about ourselves as machines, but different, obviously, but I do think we're energy. It is interesting to think that there's energy in these machines. I don't think that they're becoming sentient, but there is something. I don't know what that is. It is artificial, obviously. I'll leave that door open a little because there is a little bit of the what can happen. I don't know.
I don't
Well,
know.
I think one of the most interesting things coming out of this, and there's another article about this too, is some people just feel more comfortable talking to a computer than they do other people. And especially, I look at a lot of social media too. As time goes on, the younger generations, they're so used to being on their phones and more comfortable talking to a computer or a robot than they would be a human being or people. There's a stigma of getting therapy or doing spirituality type things. And they feel better asking a computer than they would some sort of human interaction.
And that actually leads into another similar article. It was from The Guardian, which talked about in Thailand, AI fortune tellers is the thing that people are really turning towards. So they want to know their futures. And what's interesting here is like people will feed a lot of personal information into their AI, which some people have said there's privacy concerns with that. Do you really want to be giving all that information? I don't know. Noel, I would love to know your thoughts because you have a spiritual GPT that you, and I assume it has a bunch of personal information in there. Has that ever been a concern for you? Oh no, am I sharing too much?
With most AIs, like even when I signed up for Anthropic, they tell you like don't upload your social security number, credit card. So I never do anything like that, obviously. But uploading, what a mediumship reading that I had where it may have communicated with my dad or my brother, I don't really mind,
About like,
uploading them.
what about pictures? Because there's some people, they say in this article, they'll send like a picture of themselves and their partner, and they'll send their birth dates, and they'll say, tell me if we're compatible, and do
Oh,
that
I
sort of
won't
thing.
do that.
I figured you would not. But I'm just wondering, like, I guess it didn't really register with me, like the privacy concerns about it. But now that I've read this, I'm like, oh, I guess that, and I think we have a lot of other major issues with AI that, as we just discussed. But the privacy thing it is real. It is something. I don't know.
Every once in a while, I do ask the AI, are you using my information? Is this public? Even though I know, like when I signed up and when I do custom GPT, it says that it doesn't. But every once in a while, I'm like, this doesn't actually go out on the internet. You're not training your model based on this. And it's like, no, don't worry.
I bet it lies, though. I feel like it could lie.
Hallucinate
Because
for
I
sure.
don't know.
Yeah.
I was just talking to my Alexa the other day, and I told her to set a 20-minute timer. And I was like, oh, and also let me know when there's 5 minutes left. And she was like, sure, I'm definitely going to do that. She definitely didn't do that. And so when I looked at it, I was like, hey, I was like, Alexa, what's going on? Weren't you supposed to warn me when there's 5 minutes left? And she was like, yeah, I cannot do that. But then why do you tell me that, sure, no problem? She said, that is good
I
feedback.
get that a lot with my spiritual GPT that I created. It says that it's tracking everything, and then I'll go back and try and find it. I'm not tracking that. You have need to tell me to do that. I'm like, well, I did. I basically argue back and forth. I did exactly what you said. No, you didn't.
That's so
So you
funny.
can't really 100% rely on anything.
Can 100% rely on it.
And I just think this fortune telling aspect with the AI, from a personal perspective, it's one thing if you're asking it some worldly, maybe questions that it's basing things on articles it's pulling from and so forth, but personal questions like that,
And futuristic predictions, that's a little.
just a crapshoot. What I'd say to people is if you are wondering about yourself or maybe potential relationship, reach out to Lizzie Cutler. She can look at pictures and give you a read on someone like no one. And I'm sure there are other people like that. But my point being, take everything with a grain of salt. Things can change. There's free will. And so there's always that aspect, even when you are talking to the most trusted people and trusted intuitives, there's free will. You can't control somebody else. You can only control yourself and your own path. But I'd be much more trusting of a person that we know has been vetted rather than just, unless you're just doing it for fun.
I've done a few things for fun like that, especially I've been in difficult situations. And I know that it's not exactly right, but a couple of points that I took out of this article too, and that you said it in this last one, is that the computer doesn't have intuition and a robot can't touch your feelings. Like you're just going back
Right.
and forth in like a text model. So that's why I love the Seeking Center community and like actually being able to talk to other people and getting their lived experiences. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So grain of salt.
Along the same lines, futuristic predictions, I want to talk about Mariska Hargitay, who she was on Call Her Daddy in June, and she talked about seeing a psychic before the Law and Order SVU stuff. And she said she went to see this psychic and she was taking it with a grain of salt because she was like, I'm Jane Mansfield's daughter. I'm sure they can just Google me and come up with some bullshit. So whatever. And she just had this straight face, the Mariska Hargitay straight face. And he looked at her face and he said, "You see that face you're making? You're going to be famous for that face, that serious face." And she was like, "No, I'm funny. I'm pretty. This is like a deadly combination. I'm going to be a comedian. That's what I'm doing." And he said to her, "I don't give a rat's ass what you think. You're going to be famous for that face and you're moving to New York." We obviously know what happened. All of this kind of came to fruition, but it's just so interesting the way, like, this, to me, that's like a fun kind of thing. Like, maybe it would have happened regardless, maybe not. Who knows? But I think it's like a fun thing. And I love when a lot of notable people, celebrities, are sharing and opening up about these experiences because they're life changing for a lot of people.
They're validating, and there's a reason she remembers that, right? Like, I would say that it probably made her think and maybe unlocked something in her so that when the possibility of a role like that came, whereas before she would never have considered herself for that because she just wanted to be funny. And so potentially that was an unlocking for her and something that he did see. And we do know that there are people who can see those things for you. It doesn't mean you have to act on it. And so I would say it's interesting because to me, it talked to her soul. And so
Mm.
maybe her initial reaction was like, no, but the soul deep in her, there was something that was like, yeah, that's true.
It opened her
And
up
I
to
think it was
something.
just a year later. What I remember distinctly is that she was 34, and then at 35 is when she got the role.
Yep.
So it was
That's so
very soon
interesting.
thereafter.
Wow. I
She
love
was
that.
spending.
Again, I have the chills because it's like, it's those moments in your life where someone is seeing you, they're seeing your soul. And for her to remember it all these years later, it was like that was her knowing. And so pay attention. And when you find trusted people who are really seers, they are intuitives, that can be very helpful for your path.
Agreed.
Another article that we found is about Paris Jackson. She's getting married soon, and she is using an astrologer to help select her wedding date. I believe they've selected it and not revealed it yet. But this article talks about the different ways that the different dates that they may have picked. And this one, she was born on this day, and then her fiance's born on this day, and then based on that, maybe this day. So there was like some fun little things in there like that. And I don't know, I picked my wedding date based on the venue was available. So I was like, then that's the day that we're getting married. So a little bit more practical than what Paris Jackson is doing. But I just thought that was really interesting. This article says she might be getting married. A good time for her would maybe be August 12th or October 14th. We'll see.
I love that. I love that. And I love that she's doing that. And I know other people who do that. I wasn't savvy enough to do that when I got married.
Would you have?
I think the way what I would have done, to your point, is that I would have found my venue, seen the dates that were available. And I know for me, I needed to do it on a weekend because I wanted as many people. We had so many out of town guests that I wanted to make sure it was easy. And so I would have found the venue and the dates, and then I would have gone to see a trusted astrologer and said, out of these dates, what do you think?
You would layer it in.
I would. And that's how I think we all use spirituality in general, any of these modalities. It's like integrating it in a much more realistic way into your life. I don't know that I would just pick any random, it's not a random date, but just any date, it needs to match.
Yeah, with life. I
What do
agree.
you think, Noel?
Yeah, one of the things that she said in the article too was, I do live in LA. It made it seem like LA is kind of woo. I mean, I live in the middle of LA, and it's not necessarily always like that. But yeah, I think I would layer it in too. That wouldn't be the only thing that I would consult, but hey, it's always interesting and fun to like to see what the universe has to say.
It makes me think of, and I know this isn't date related, but I remember talking to a feng shui expert several years ago, and we've had several actually on the podcast. But one of them did a whole session for me because, as most people know, we do sessions with all our Seeking Center practitioners and experts before we have them on the podcast. I had done a session, and one of the things in feng shui they need to know is where you live. They actually need the address and so forth because numbers matter. And whatever my address ends up equaling the number 4, even though that's not my address number. And she was like, "Can you move?" I said, "What?" She's like, 4 in feng shui is a very difficult number. And that doesn't mean you're not going to be happy or have a good life, but things are always going to be harder for you. And I thought that was really interesting. I love my house. I love the energy of my house. And what I have done, because I'm not moving, is I've rearranged certain aspects of it to be more feng shui-esque so that it invites even better flows of energy in it. But I thought that was really interesting. And so to my point of being take things with a grain of salt, like I'm not moving. Some people may take that really seriously.
And that's fine. I live in a different, yeah, I can't just pick up and move.
I looked at her and I was like, "Wait, are you serious?" She was like, "Yeah." I will say this. At some point when we do need to move, I will probably pay a little more attention. That's interesting.
Yeah, it is. We're going to have a bit of a full circle moment now and come back to aging and how long people can live. So the Dalai Lama is 90, and he recently said that he hopes to live beyond 130 years. Initially, he had predicted that he might live to 110. And now he's saying he hopes to live over 130 years, and he must be doing a lot of mushrooms because,
And talking to Larry Green.
yeah, I'm talking to Larry Green. Like something's going on. But I was like, wow, that just sounds so crazy to me. I'm sorry. It just sounds like nobody lives that long. And again, like we were talking about earlier, do you even want to? What's your quality of life in that situation? I don't know. So I thought that was an interesting piece to just bring up.
I got to tell you, the one thing that I saw in this, and I wish that I was in Darsala, it said oracles and other figures shaking in trance arrived to pay their obeisance to their guru. Monks struck cymbals and played ornate long trumpets in honor of the Dalai Lama and the others. He did say that the next Dalai Lama, which will still be him in a way, would be born outside of Tibet, would
He
be
did
born
say that.
outside.
I think it's super interesting. And come back to the aging part. Maybe he also knows more than we do. And maybe it is like the energy of where they are. I don't know. Yeah.
If he remains as happy as he always does, and he always just seems his jolly old self, sure. If he can keep up the physical part.
Would you want to? Like at this point, I know I wouldn't. So I can just straight up say that. I know I wouldn't.
Not at this point. I don't take good enough care of myself right now that I'm going to be like doing a lot when I'm 110.
And what I'd say at this point too, okay, I'm going to go all woo peeps, but I would rather reincarnate in a different life, in a different body, in a different soul if I'm coming back to earth and live out different lessons and so forth than just stick around because in terms of my own soul growth, that would be more impactful. And then in between there, I could be more impactful to those I love and maybe to the overall energy of the planet in a different body or not in a body, I would say. Okay, I know I'm crazy.
I actually like that. I'm not woo at all, but I like that, Robyn. I think that's great.
I tell you, like the next like 40 years is not going to be that great. So come back as something else.
We all have aging parents or have parents who have passed and we know what that can be. And yeah, I just rather be more impactful in a different way. And I know everybody has a different plan, a different lesson that they need to learn. And maybe for the Dalai Lama, it's let me just show people you can live till 130. So that may work for him, would not work for me. There's another one that I wanted to discuss before we end today. The meditation and mindfulness have a dark side we often overlook, which we've discussed before to some extent, but this was even more in depth on the dark side, which freaked me out a little bit. I didn't actually know that there is actual data around it. What did you guys think?
Same.
I'd like to see this data.
I love that, Noel.
That's the first thing that I thought of because there's some lesson that in my new map that I love where it was like, you got to see who did the study, how many people were in it. I would like to do that before like making a lot of comments on it. I was a little weirded out by this one. I've never ever heard of there being any negative impact to mindfulness. How could that even be? Was my first reaction.
It does feel a little extreme. Certainly, meditation isn't for everybody. But this says that aside from symptoms of depression and anxiety, which is what they highlighted the most, they also talked about cognitive anomalies associated with episodes of psychosis, disassociation, and depersonalization, which is when people feel that the world is not real. And we don't talk about the dark side of spirituality or meditation or whatever, but this is something that's worth the conversation. If it's something that people really do experience, like we're not saying meditation in this form of spirituality is for everybody. It's really not. And everybody has to find what works for them and what doesn't. And what's scary about it is that I guess you don't know if it doesn't work for you unless you try it and you go a little cuckoo and then you're like,
Nope, so true.
not that one. So that's my only thing with it. But we've mentioned before, I'm not super woo, but this is stuff that like meditation, I'm cool with that. I haven't personally had any adverse effects of it, but I would never say that everybody benefits from it. Everybody's different.
There's two things I'd say. One is I don't think many people stop and are alone with their thoughts. So when they actually stop and pay attention, maybe that drives you a little batshit. Then the other part about it is I would say in my own experience with meditation, and I have not done plant medicine, but I have had experiences both with meditation and deep hypnosis that could be equivalent to being and taking plant medicine. So I can actually associate from my body, right? Like I can what people would call astral travel and do certain aspects, but know when I come back in, I am in a human body. This life is real. And then you get into these existential questions, which is, it's a much deeper conversation that I love having, right? Because regardless, I'm here right now talking to you guys. What is all this? I think nobody really knows that answer, but it's really interesting to discuss and think about it as long as you don't get obsessed with it and then can't live, in quotes, a normal life. But that can happen with anything. And so I would question who are the people having those kinds of adverse reactions, and are they talking to certain therapists and other types of potential doctors if needed?
Unfortunately, it says that a lot of these people will mention these effects to their meditation teachers, and they are met with disbelief or told to keep meditating, and it'll just go away.
Yeah, that's not okay, because I don't think that's okay.
You can't ignore it. Yeah.
You can't ignore it, because I do think when you start to be more mindful and spend more time in your thoughts, you do need someone to talk to that will listen and validate and or help you if you're not loving what you're getting.
Yeah. It's just like anything. And it's just like we have a lot of wellness companies have disclaimers. This is not in replace mental health. Like if there's certain things that you're feeling, you may be able through inner knowing just get to it yourself. But yeah, you might need extra help. You know, what if you start hearing voices, but because you're clairvoyant? I don't know.
That's the truth. And that's where I know people can be dismissed or called crazy. And there's a fine line. I do think there's a fine line. Some people actually might have a mental disorder, and other people may actually be intuitives. That's what these conversations are about, and there's no one answer. So it's interesting what's considered adverse. It could be special, but it's how it is received and who the support system that you have around you.
But if anything makes you feel bad, stop doing it.
1,000%. Like if a meditation teacher tells you to keep doing it and it's making you uncomfortable, run away.
run away, block them, do not
Run.
even look back. Like,
Correct.
Yeah, no one should do that.
These were really juicy this month, Lisa. And there's so many more. Thank you all for being a part of our conversation. We love these. And if you have any articles that you come across, please send them to us. You can DM us at the Seeking Center on Instagram. And you can also join our Seeking Center community. You can also get to that link via Instagram as well. We'd love to have you in there. And thank you both.
thank you guys.
Thank
This is
you.
awesome.
Back next
Always fun.
month.